Hello, my name is Mjrlun and welcome back to my video. As Minecraft Renewed approaches, there have always been many questions under these two categories when I'm discussing it. Why are you making it? And second, what is it? Well, in this video, I'll be tackling the former. The latter is for another time when, the mod is actually releasable. Well, why am I making it? It's a long-standing large set of issues I've had with Minecraft, and when I analyze each Minecraft update starting from 1.0 through 1.17, there's been a whole bunch of missteps and seemingly blindfolded behavior. In this video, I'll be tackling this from several angles. First, in the perspective of what Minecraft was intended to be from the beginning, and second, all four of my game design axioms, of which you can learn their definitions by looking in the description, or by clicking the More Videos from Mjrlun info box. Starting with what Minecraft was intended to be, let's take a short ride back to 2009. Notch had finished enough of the game's engine and core mechanics to switch the primary game mode from creative to survival. In fact, from then on, there was no creative. Starting with the survival test into InDev, the game was radically changed from a sandbox into an actual survival game. Health, mobs to kill, a score meter, etc. You could still of course modify the entire playfield just like any Minecraft we're used to. However, this was the only game mode up until beta 1.8, 2 years later, when creative mode was reintroduced in a rudimentary form. Slowly increasing since beta 1.7.3, Notch was done with Minecraft as a project. As a result, starting with release 1.0, Notch stepped down into being a figurehead for several years, initiating the insufferable reign of Jeb as Minecraft's main game designer. Jeb was later replaced in 2021 during the development of 1.17, probably from some Microsoft crony executive, although I haven't really followed Minecraft news past that point, so don't quote me on it. With the knowledge of survival before creation, we can now examine Minecraft from the lens of my 4 axioms. Starting with the first axiom, the admin of enchanting as a whole, especially the mending, totems of undying, fishing, and netherite set the precedent for unnecessary game loop nullification strategies for mid to end game players. The enchantment system as a whole has a major outcome of slowing down the Minecraft game loop. Enchantments such as Unbreaking Protection prevent the player from losing their equipment, which is a core mechanic in a survival game, capable of knocking the player down a peg and slowing or recycling progression. Additionally, enchantments such as Fortune and Looting reduce the sunk time required to seek out worldly resources like diamonds, redstone, coal, gunpowder, bones, and arrows. Moving on to the Mending enchantment, which for reference needs its own paragraph for how absurd it is, completely disables the Minecraft game loop as it prevents the player from losing any durability from mundane tasks, especially when coupled with the extremely exploitable XP farms, but that's for Axiom 2. Due to this, the player is stuck in a state of godlike powers whose only drive to interact with the game is to build random objects. It's like, why? Whoever thought of this enchantment in the first place should be given a special place in game design hell, because the violation of Axiom 1 is so blatant and game-ending that even a high school student can figure out why not to add it, and that's not really saying much for our high schools, yikes. Moving further, we still have a while to get through Axiom 1. Simply put, totems undying are what mending is for tools but for the player's life. The player dying is a reasonable and necessary aspect of a survival game. Otherwise, the player has no incentive to stay alive and not act recklessly. The totem of undying is so powerful that it can prevent death from lava, even just for a few extra seconds. Additionally, fishing is a large source of the enchanting imbalance, as enchanted books of any 1.11 and prior varieties can be acquired by sinking enough time slapping your fishing rod against the water and waiting for an imaginary fish to come poke it. Of course. Not only is this incredibly boring gameplay, this is one of the easiest ways to obtain mending in the game. Among gigantic quantities of fish, saddles, nullifying the need to go search for mob spawners, other fishing rods, what? Nautilus shells, and various other junk. To cap off the axe embrace for the Minecraft game loop, this one actually breathes life into it, while simultaneously suffocating the risk and reward factor of this survival game. Netherite-laden items prevent them from being burnt in lava, the main source of danger within the Nether, Minecraft's most dangerous dimension. Just like removing the teeth of a wolf, this is detrimental to the game's intended design, breaking Axiom 1. Moving on to section 2 of Axiom 1, we behold Minecraft's cheap attempt at a merchant system. The main problems with the trading system are found in Axiom 2 for later, however even in itself, trading is a recipe for disaster in a survival game. Using methods which explicitly break Axiom 4, such as using farmed goods to receive enchanted diamond tools, trading tramples directly on the Minecraft game loop by discouraging its use in favor for unintended gameplay by its original design. In a similar vein, piglin bartering, the second form of the merchant system, is actually not a terrible concept for what it's worth. Give valuable items for most likely useless garbage. Okay, fine. The problem is how much it nullifies the Ender Pearl gathering game loop, circumventing the intended design of the Enderman hunt. With that, we move on to the plane crash that is Minecraft's abandoned structures. Starting with the infamous, for speedrunners, Desert Temple, this structure, once the player has a modicum of experience, is extremely easy to bypass in its trap, allowing the player to get a wide variety of items, including all mineral ores, enchanted golden apples, mob loot, and TNT. These are all quite valuable items, only usually created by the mixing of the Minecraft and mob hunting game loops, of which can be completely circumvented by this one structure. However, we are not yet done with structures, as the ocean ruins, sunken ships, treasure chests, and ocean monuments, in their intended design, infringe on the Minecraft and Survival Challenge core game loops. The former infringement is from the loot itself. The treasure chests, enabled by the ocean ruins treasure maps, sunken ships, and ocean monuments all contain a wide spattering of mineral loot, allowing the player to avoid the need to mine. This is coupled with the violation of the Survival Challenge game loop, as obtaining the Heart of the Sea, Nautilus shells from fishing, and Prismarine from the ocean monuments allows the player to become invulnerable to drowning, the ocean's biggest threat, thus interfering with the intended design of oceans. The last structure to mention here, the End City, is plagued by a wide variety of problems beset upon them by the genius, and I mean that extremely loosely, that designed 1.9, the power creep the combat update. Yeah, the combat. The philosophy that drives the End City dungeon loot is that of a typical dungeon crawler. Being in the end game means to get the best loot. However, in the case of Minecraft, the end game does not exist. See what I did there? Due to this, once the end has been unlocked for any player, all you need to do is find your first end city with an elytra, which we'll get into a bit by the way, then go hunt for hours for all the mineral loot, tools, and armor, and thus nullifying the Minecraft game loop, breaking Axiom 1. We then move on to transportation, although I'll give you some time to brew on where elytras show up. Starting with the original sin with the addition of horses, let's compare all the following transportation methods to minecart rails. Minecarts are slow, roughly 8 to 11 meters per second, are extremely expensive, are slightly faster than running, and by no means maneuverable. By comparison to even horses, they run laps, quite literally around the minecarts, especially if you use selective breeding techniques to boost their stats. Horses are incredibly maneuverable, quite cheap to get, and can work on any terrain. The second type of transport, although actually an exploit that Minecrafters literally pleaded Mojang to keep in back in the 1.9 update, really shows how much testosterone left in the game studio, jeez. The boats can go incredibly fast on all types of ice surfaces, due to their extremely low friction factor. Due to this, boats can reach ridiculous maximum speeds, especially on packed and blue ice, to a blistering 72.73 meters per second, much faster than chunks can even load for most machines. I will remind you that minecarts can only go 11 meters per second on diagonal tracks, and therefore boats on ice are 9 times faster than minecarts, while the vehicle itself is much cheaper, 5 wood versus 5 iron, and the tracks used to facilitate the vehicle in this case only takes finding an ice spikes biome or an iceberg biome, the latter quite common. While blue ice boats take the cake in terms of speed, elytras still take the cake in terms of absolutely broken game design. I will preface this by acknowledging that sometime between 1.16 and 1.18, elytras were nerfed in terms of their speed in favor of duration, however this does not impact the insane absurdity of their balance. Elytras allow the player to glide, for up to the number of seconds in the durability meter, and coupled with fireworks, actually fly as if you're in a one-man airplane. Even despite the changes to World Gen increasing the desire for players to travel far and wide, none of these transport methods justify the reason for the much higher top speed, especially with the ridiculously slow chunk loading times by comparison. Just play modern Minecraft in vanilla with no mods. It's a joke. The last addendum for Axiom 1 is Shulker boxes added in 1.11, one of the forgotten updates as I like to call them. People had been requesting for years, they wouldn't shut up about it, how Minecraft needed backpacks so they could store more building materials, among other things. Unfortunately, the intended design of the inventory wanted this to occur, such that the gameplay would be slowed in general, because this is a survival game first, sandbox second. Well, people eventually got their wish, actually again with bundles, although after looking it up, the devs realized how insanely overpowered bundles are, so put them behind experimental mode. Oh, that's great. Yep, good job, Minecraft. Okay, I'm done now. That's just too funny. Anyhow, let's move into Axiom 2 on the 5th page of the script. Dear lord. Starting with XP farms, here's what Enchanting did not anticipate, and probably what Jeb just shrugged at when people figure out how to exploit it. XP is an extremely renewable resource that can be easily gotten from killing any assortment of mobs. Simpler examples include underground mob spawners, others include the infamous Enderman and Blaze Grinders, others still including trading extensively of finely tuned villagers, which we'll get into both later. Considering enchanting was supposed to originally be used sparingly, and up until 1.8 was actually rather expensive, taking the precise number of levels required to enchant from the player, safe to say these are not intended by the original design by any means. In fact, in the original iteration of enchanting, the highest tier enchantments would only be gotten from a level 50 enchant, and with literally all 50 levels from the player. Safe to say, all forms of XP farming are a hybrid of exploits and greenlighted exploits. Either one still nullifies the enchantment system's intended XP challenge, thus breaking Axiom 2, well, and 1. Moving on to the even more infamous, fun-killing gold and iron farms, these are the farms that absolutely kill any SMP I've even remotely glanced at. Iron farms use an exploit where a small village is created, spawning an iron golem for protection. This iron golem is funneled into a grinder of sorts which turns it into ingots. Similarly, gold farms use zombified piglins, or zombie pigmen, which are funneled from spawn zones containing hundreds of nether portals into a zone to be grinded. Take Minecrafters to exploit the minutiae of details and the nice courtesy of village behavior. Implied by my use of the word exploit, neither of these mechanics were intended to be used as such, and very obviously break Axiom 2. These farms nullify the need to mine for any reason, as iron is the most used crafting component in the game, and thus fun killing the game into creative mode. I'd be fine if these people would want to play creative, but why do we need to make survival into that? They're separate for a reason, guys. Moving back to fishing, AFK fish farms were methods of using minimal sources of water to repeatedly roll the dice in the fishing loot pool. Some of them required the player to permanently hold down their use item button, while others just worked automatically once initiated, exploiting how the game checks for mouse click actions. Lucky for Jeb's reputation, well, slightly, although there's still the rest of this video, he did decide to remove the main ways that these farms work in 1.16. Despite this, due to the addition of skulk sensors, these new limits were bypassed, recreating the problem. Interestingly, however, Bedrock Edition explicitly removes fishing exploits as soon as they are discovered, which is probably the only thing I can give them props for. Due to these abuses involving fish farms, it is safe to say that they break Axiom 2 in relation to the fishing mechanics, although also Axiom 1 in relation to enchanting and all that. However, we still have more to go through regarding the worst Minecraft update to ever exist, of which I haven't spoken that much about, as it is the biggest offender of Axiom 2, the 1.14 Village and Pillage update. They should honestly just rename it to the Creative Mode update, as it's basically what it allows. Starting off with villager de-zombification, this mechanic allows the player to get discounts when de-zombifying a villager. This is a nice mechanic as a one-time deal, except the player can then re-zombify the same villager and repeat the process, stacking the discount with a minimum price of 1 material per type. Coupling this with the simple trade converting books to emeralds and emeralds for bookshelves, the player can trade in 1 book for an emerald and then spend that emerald on a bookshelf containing 3 books, allowing emeralds and books to be duplicated in a 3-to-1 ratio indefinitely. This bug has not been removed, only partially, since added in 1.14, and it seems like they've doubled down on keeping it for some stupid reason. This zombification exploit can also be used to get any assortment of expensive items for essentially free, although the next exploit will make this process even easier. On top of the previous insanity, an exploit was found in Java Edition, although it can be used to some extent in Bedrock Edition, to recycle villager trades. In the past, in order to recycle trades, players literally had to make villager breeding dungeons, to put it mildly, which would create new children perpetually of a random profession, which would then be checked for good traits, and if not, sent off to the gulag, quite literally. In contrast, this new method allows the player to use the same villager and repeatedly remove and place back down the work table of the desired profession, which will delete the previous trade loot table and replace it with a new one. The only downside of this exploit is that once the player has traded with the villager at all, their profession and loot table is locked in, which prevents this exploit from allowing a full recycle. Still though, when coupled with the zombification exploit, players can, for example, get a villager that provides mending, protection 4, fortune 3, etc., and will trade it for a book and an emerald. Disgusting. Similarly, players can use this on blacksmiths and armor smiths to receive enchanted diamond armor for, once again, an emerald. This is beyond insanity and belongs in the lowest possible floor of game design hell. Devil, please yank the shackles of the game designer that greenlighted this down there. They're better off serving there. As Minecraft is less prone to violating Axiom 3, although slightly more prone to violating Axiom 4, I will be passing them over for today's video. If you can spot Axiom violations of those two, please leave a comment down below for what it was, and I'll definitely check it out. Until then, I have some choice words for Jeb if I ever meet that game design wretch. Goodbye!